Well, I wasn't going to post it. I was going to wait, Jocko. But how the hell do you know her in terms of... I mean, don't get me wrong.
Но все упирается в деньги, которых у нас
If,
нет.
if it was for leukemia treatment,
то нам надо будет либо
I
начинать
could see things. This is a
лечение
local
по
thing
новой,
in that community to
или,
where she's
естественно,
from.
как она его перенесет.
And I understand that this is it. And the goal would be to do this for every American and say this is the case, the kid, because they're a kid. Doesn't matter. I mean, they're just a kid. If you can, and it's within the systems to say this is one, this is the other, we do programs like this. I'd buy into what you're selling, Jocko, about where this is coming from. I mean, unless you know her or you have system, and again, what donation you're in on that. Give me some backup on this one. Why the podcast?
It seems that all remained of his training in the mind of each
you
recipient
know what I'm saying,
was the
though?
faulty syllogism: officers should be gentlemen. I am an officer, therefore I am a gentleman. After this, he seemed to behave neither as an officer nor as a gentleman in generally any accepted sense of these terms. And Raven says this: once an officer is established in his own view as a member of a superior and order-giving class, he never loses this sense. This is where things turn into a nightmare.
What are you?
So an officer is established
I heard you were
in his own view as a member of a superior and order-giving class.
You're gonna hit me with a bunch of shit about that Master Mason stuff and doing
but
it
he
for
can,
you, and it's
and
like
often
really.
does lose all awareness of the moral basis
Like, I don't mind
of this
Master Masons
superiority
having them
and
when
all
they're
the
doing what they're
qualities which
supposed to do.
constitute
If it's
this
a grader,
basis.
I'll
So
call
he
him a
forgets
Master
why he's
Mason.
in this
He's a
position. He
fucking
forgets that
grader.
he was just like placed here. He starts to believe his own bullshit and the bullshit that's been fed to him that people run
And
around
they
calling
would
him
be.
sir and
I
saluting
would
him.
be their Toby, man.
He just becomes superior, as it were.
We couldn't
In
gear.
vacuo,
It wouldn't
which
work. I
means
wouldn't be able to
in
do
a
my
vacuum,
job
he's-
like
in a
Superman.
vacuum, he's just superior.
Without the greater mark and the
He
stuff.
becomes
I don't
a
know. It
gentleman.
wouldn't mark.
When this
I don't know.
happens,
It wouldn't work.
one gets that product so
Delport,
typical of
right
the
now.
British,
It is Delport.
the amateur English officer, highly trained professionally and morally, he has forgotten his professional techniques and sloughed off on his sense of moral obligation, but he retained an unassailable sense of his own superiority
Fucking dance guy. You're my new dance
and
guy.
absolute right to give orders. And my note next
I've
to
been
that
that
was
dancing
nightmare.
guy. I know what you're thinking.
That's a nightmare.
I was
To forget
I was thinking the
how
same thing.
you ended up in this position.
Thinking like I'd never do what
to
that
forget
asshole do, and it's like meanwhile
that
I'll work
you
you with
don't
that
know
rock. It's like you're
everything,
gonna have to burn
to
rock.
just
It
get
sucks.
told
It's
that
like
you're an officer and
one
you're
of you better
superior,
than, and it hurts more than the
and
rest
you
of the other
start to
spots for
believe
the same
that
pay.
this is a nightmare for leadership.
Guess what you're gonna do for the same pay for a little while, just to get good. It's an art. The torch. You ever see somebody talk about cutting welds?
Nowadays, things are
The
different. The
Victor
social
valve.
distance
If you
between
didn't know
officers
what
and
that
men
was
more
based
often than
on
not
the
contrived
handshake or
rather than
Bernoulli's
rooted in
or
their
mathematics
ancestry.
or
For
that
officers
and
of humble origins, this might well
furnace,
be expected to
whatever.
produce sizable problems of adjustment. The first jolt to their social reinforcement standard will be of
They
descriptive
were figuring
discrepancy.
out
What's
the
interesting about
area
this is
of X's kitchen.
there's
Who
no
was it?
guarantee.
You figured it out. Waldo.
Like,
That's my
I knew
guess.
officers that
LaPlaza.
came silver spoon all day long, and they were just down to earth,
Heisenberg,
good
because
people.
we've been running Heisenberg in sniper
And
school.
I also
Like,
knew
most of the
silver
position
spoon
out
officers that
who's-
thought that they
like, they are drill sergeants,
deserved, they
and
thought that they were
The
superior.
range of
I
what that
also
is
knew
could
some
be
guys from lower class that scrambled
acting.
through
It's
and
like
scraped
play
through and
weak,
became
right?
officers, and they were awesome, and they never forgot where they came from. And I also knew officers that had come up through the ranks, and they were turds. Leif points out that the best officer that went through his junior officer training
I was like the
was
42
a
in this.
prior
come to
enlisted
me.
officer.
I don't know, thinking Avalanche.
and the
race.
worst officer that went through his junior officer training was a prior enlisted officer, which is crazy to think.
Yeah.
That's
'Cause
crazy.
it would be this. It's
I
like
think that-
when
I
you're in
agree with that.
interrogation. It's like I had to stab him.
Your
What do you want?
description, those 4 categories, whatever you want to call them, same thing.
Got
Say
done.
the exact
Right?
same
Got
thing.
it done. 0-1.
And I'm trying to remember the way you were describing it. Is I remember, I guess I don't remember like the first time it happened.
That's
but
special. The rules
there's
of
like a
war
ceremony.
are
Do you
different
have a
than the
first
rules of
salute
town.
ceremony?
They are the
Yep.
same freaking thing, but they are different.
And I remember that being an incredibly uncomfortable experience for me. Like,
So imagine how would you
man,
know
this is
the
weird.
purge
The guy who I
actually
did it was a
started
good
outside?
friend of mine. He was an
Furnace
enlisted
is
Marine. He had
entire-
fought in
yeah,
Desert
garbage is
Storm.
on fire.
He was
keep kicking in
a
buildings.
known, well-known guy, and
Well,
just
you
by
already had a bunch
virtue
of them. Yeah, I
of
know. Fucking weird, right?
accomplishing the criteria to make me an officer, like from one moment to the next, he saluted me.
Yeah.
And I think I was just lucky to have that sense of like, man, this is weird.
glad Jupiter
You know,
keeps cracking it, man.
But also, I think you described it well, like
somebody,
the reverence
you know,
for the
there's
institution. Like,
probably
this is how
something
the
out there
institution
great.
is
It's just-
designed, and if you have that
when you
reverence
really watch
for
a
it,
good general,
he didn't feel
get
demeaned, and I
charged
didn't
with
feel
something
superior.
like,
And yet,
have
that's
just
the way it's
getting
supposed
my
to. And yeah,
dick
and yet
worked
how
in
easily, like, oh,
forever. I will tell you anything you want to know.
you know how quickly people fall into that trap
They
of.
fall into that trap all
And
day
it's
long.
not the institution
And they
that
got him.
bestowed
Though.
this
Like
on
they
me.
forgot about that guy because he was such a perfect dude,
I
made
see,
out of
yes.
different metals. Son.
Yeah, I mean, and this again, we're talking about
And
the
then it
military
rolls over
specifically,
ya.
but you can
It's
apply
like
this
the
anywhere.
big
You can apply
waves.
this anywhere. Oh, well, I went to this college. I went through this program. I got my MBA from here or there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, did I tell you that?
This
Did
is
I
the log
mention
factory
where I
that
went to
you have
college?
to
You know,
now
it's
NBA.
like,
It's like my
yeah,
Stanford
that's cool,
game is
man. Appreciate
wrong.
it. That's awesome.
It's like this is now Stanford
when
for
you say
these
it, nobody
boys. Why?
notices
Because
you.
they'll never go to Stanford in their lifetime. But you from Stanford may one day walk your ass in my mill. And I'll be standing there.